Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Covid-Novid podcast episode 2 with Puck
and the LongwoodGeek.
So, a lot of stuff happened over the weekend, and we weren't able to report on it, so we're going to get that done real quick right now.
Exactly. We've got a lot of stuff from over the weekend. As a reminder, all of our sources are coming from the direct press briefings by the White House, the CDC, governor's briefings for the state of Virginia, and all official sites like that. We're not pulling stuff from any rumor mills. We're not doing a TMZ and pulling it from just random places. We are making sure we get our information directly from the horse's mouth. So if there's anything that's incorrect, blame it on the horse, not the rider.
Nay. All right, so let's get started. So apparently there were some closings of schools in our area, and other states are following suit?
Yeah, so SOLs have been canceled for the year here in Virginia. That's actually a rather big deal because the standards of learning are something that is normally required for students to pass in order to graduate. But because of the fact they're already missing 2 weeks and it's going to be this close to the end of the year, they're just going ahead and canceling them outright. And Virginia schools will be closed for the rest of the standard school year.
Now, from what I understand, a lot of states are doing the same thing. I mean, well, obviously, if all the schools are closed, then...
Yeah, we're finding out the courts are closed or closing, or they're hearing only urgent cases. They're not hearing regular ones. I had a court date for a ticket from an accident that's been pushed all the way from April 2nd to June 1st. So it's definitely taking its toll on both our public infrastructure and private infrastructure.
Oh, well, it's not just us, though. Apparently, the UK has been put on total lockdown starting tonight for 3 weeks, and that was from the BBC.
So what can you tell me about what the lock-in, or not lock-in, lockdown entails?
So, from this evening, people must stay at home except for shopping for basic necessities. Daily exercise, any medical need, and traveling to and from essential work is still permitted. Shops selling any non-essential goods are being told to shut down, and gatherings in public of more than 2 people who do not live together are prohibited. Other premises, including libraries, playgrounds, and outdoor gyms and places of worship, must also close immediately. Parks will remain open for exercise, but gatherings will also be dispersed. The government is also stopping all social events, including weddings, baptisms, and other ceremonies, but funerals will still be allowed.
Which makes sense. You've got only a limited amount of time before the body starts to show wear and tear before it goes in the ground. So, I mean, and mourning traditions for most religions don't allow for an extended time of the body being exposed. It sounds like what they're trying to do is combat the virus with, again, more of the social distancing.
Oh, yeah. And part of the reason is because mortality is 2 times as likely in males as compared to females. So one of the things, though, is that apparently there were some poisonings with hydrochloroquine and other preventatives.
Yeah, so in combating the virus, there was some talk last week about how hydrochloroquine could be used to perhaps prevent or reduce the symptoms of the coronavirus. Unfortunately, most people weren't taking it as you should have been. I'm on it twice a day, and it's pretty effective stuff for what I'm doing it for, which is to suppress my immune system. But taking it not as prescribed and without enough research having been done to see if this will even work is kind of reckless. And I'm glad that they've addressed that and have suggested that people stop doing that. There was also a suggestion made by the president that you can sanitize masks. That is currently being hotly debated by the FDA and a lot of other medical groups who are saying that that's probably not the best idea, but that was something that was talked about during the press briefings that was suggested.
Yeah, as far as the masks, there's certain ones that can be sanitized, but obviously the paper ones, the ones like that, you can't sanitize them. Once you've used them, that's it.
Well, with masks being a hot topic right now, Apple has agreed to donate 2 million masks. I don't know where they're getting them from, but they've managed either to buy stock that was sitting there or they are getting people to make them. But 2 million masks is a big deal. Honeywell, which is another vendor in both the security and medical space, they are sending over N95 masks, and they are working to basically up their assembly chain to get them produced more quickly.
Yeah, it could be as soon as 30 days that they'll actually have it moving on the assembly chain. And they're actually sending that to Rhode Island because I guess that they're actually opening shop up in Rhode Island, getting their companies basically running there.
So ventilators are another hot topic, and there are several different groups that are trying to get ventilators working for supporting people that need them that have contracted the coronavirus. They're working on outpatient ventilators. There are animal ventilators that they're seeing if they can retrofit. And there's also a push to try to convert BiPAP machines into working ventilators as well. Again, this is a case of where people are having to hold back because they're not sure if it's going to be approved and don't want to get sued if somebody dies because of a non-standard ventilator.
Here's the funny thing, though. The outpatient ventilators that are used by the anesthesiologist, they only have to change one thing in it, and it can be used for the people that have coronavirus.
Yeah, I know the BiPAP modifications are not exceedingly difficult. There's some complex parts you have to swap, but actually doing the swap when you have the parts, from what I understand, is not as difficult. What's funny, and this is kind of going into just a joke about prohibition back in the day, the alcohol industry is repurposing quite a few factories to doing hand sanitizer, since most hand sanitizer is just high-proof alcohol with some other chemicals inside to kill germs. But if you're buying hand sanitizer, do us a favor, don't hoard it, especially if you intend to price gouge people.
Right.
Yeah, we have not really had to have an industry nationalized in a very, very long time. In fact, in a lot of cases, like the utilities in the United States, they've been privatized. But if you're going to start if people are going to start taking advantage of other people, that's something that may happen at the governmental level.
Well, going back to what you were saying, one of the things that the president actually put into effect today is there's this huge task force that's being undertaken that basically they're looking for people that are stockpiling warehouses worth of this PPE, and they're coming for you. They've already launched investigations. They are serious about this.
Well, and I can understand where they're coming from. Opinion for a moment. It's kind of unfair to have people to basically take what people have bought, and if they're giving a fair price, which would be what they paid for, or maybe a little bit more, then it's not as bad. But
they are doing that. They are offering a fair price for the product.
The fair price part, though, is determined by the government, and that can be whatever they decide is a fair price. That does not necessarily mean an industry standard price. Opinion over there. Just be sure you're not hoarding anything, because, we're all here to help each other.
And on that, to those that are listening in that may be an undocumented individual, Trump has said that they will not be deported. You will not be deported if you go for testing. So if you need it, please. This has gotten to the point that he said, you know what? He'll sign it into law that you'll be safe. You will not be deported if you seek testing. Of course, that is what Trump said. So.
Oh, and by the way, speaking of things that people or that we've discussed in the past that are coming back, apparently I was correct. One of the ships, Mercy, is going to California, and the hospital ship Comfort is going to the East Coast and should arrive in 3 to 4 weeks. So, unfortunately, Comfort is taking a little bit longer because they caught it mid-maintenance. This caught a lot of people with their pants down. And so it is currently having its maintenance finished, but they're trying to supply it at the same time. And with that, not only do we have the Navy, but we've also got a lot of other governmental and private sources trying to get together and push some computing research on this. Folding at home is allowing you to basically use your system to help do some of the gene processing, I believe, on the coronavirus itself. And right now, it has actually, so many computers have done the Folding at Home project. I believe it is more powerful than the top 7 supercomputers in the world.
Yes, and actually, I run Folding at Home whenever we're not in the office. I run it as kind of a background process. And the way that it works is you sign up, and you basically set it, get this tiny little app that goes on your computer, and it does the processes. You can set it high, medium, or low. I generally have mine set to high, especially if we're not really using the internet, because, hey, you know what? We've got the resources. Might as well use them. But on that, the Department of Energy is actually launching their supercomputing resources. And we've got IBM, Amazon, Google, MIT, the National Labor Lab, NASA. Everybody's pulling together to help.
Yeah, it's amazing just how much everybody is pulling together for this. I can't tell you how many people I know that have downloaded the Folding at Home to run. And again, the fact that these big businesses are turning their computer resources over to it, they actually probably will not miss the computer time that wasn't being used anyways. And at the same time, they're helping a great cause and making sure that they still have customers in a couple of years.
Right.
So speaking of things at the Department of Energy and Department of Defense level, this isn't quite DoD, but the National Guard has been approved in Washington State, California, and New York City with Title 32 status. Basically what that means is the governor, once they've gotten approval from the president or secretary of defense, they can order people to duty for operational homeland defense activities. This is not martial law. They're not actually, because they're not using the, I don't want to say actual military, but they're not using the wartime foreign-based military. The National Guard is designed for intra-U.S. use, not intra-continental. So they're not doing this to become a police force or anything. These are the people that are going to be helping out at volunteer stations, maybe manning hospitals, things like that, where they might normally have a job that's not oriented towards combating the virus. If their skill set matches that and they're in the National Guard, they'll be pushed towards it. They are also getting some community-based testing sites popping up, but from what I've been reading from several other places, including some people that I've worked with, these are only for people exhibiting symptoms. If you don't have symptoms, don't try to go and get tested. Honestly, there's no way, it's wasting resources if it turns out that you didn't have it. And that's a test that's taken away from somebody who potentially might.
And it also burns through PPE. Now, there is the nasal swab, which the FDA has approved it, so everybody celebrates, less invasive, which will require less PPE. Like, they can give it to you, like, give you the kit and be like, all right, go swab your nose. It only swabs the inside, like, lower part of your nose, not actually deep into the sinus cavity.
I actually saw a diagram of the procedure for the full testing going all the way back to the back of the throat. So interestingly enough, I had a tumor out of my head when I was 16, and this is actually what they're doing is almost exactly the same thing that happened when they would put the camera in my head to go all the way back, because they had to actually check in my head and sinal cavity to see where the tumor was. And yeah, I'm going to tell you right now, it is uncomfortable, but as long as you don't swallow and you breathe through your mouth with regular breathing, it's not as bad. It's going to tickle more than the camera did for me because, of course, they're using a swab to do it. But do your best not to sneeze. Overall, though, I mean, it is a lot less invasive of a test than it could be. But you have to be careful getting it done, and don't get it done if you're not having symptoms. I can't stress that enough.
But, also, the 15 days to slow the spread thing, one of the things is that if you're sick, stay home, all right? If you're laid off, guess what? Trump stresses you should be applying for unemployment. But again, if you don't have symptoms, don't get the test.
Yeah, I mean, that's the long and the short of it. They're not going to criminalize it yet, but I could totally see them doing that. Opinion time. I could totally see them doing that at some point if they have so many people going in for it that are not showing symptoms. So, but if you are showing any of the symptoms for coronavirus, then absolutely get tested. The sore throat, the fever, if you're starting to experience those, absolutely go get tested. And make sure you're self-quarantining completely in a case like that. They are continuing to work on the relief bill, moving over to the briefings for today. They are continuing to work on a relief bill in Congress, and FEMA has started distributing over 8 million of the N95 masks, and another 13.3 million surgical masks are being distributed as well, with 73 pallets of PPE going to New York and 36 to Washington State.
The really cool thing, though, is that 6.5 million masks have been donated.
I know that at where I work, it's a research institute, and we've had so many labs that have been willing to donate whatever masks they've got to get them to the groups that need them. I mean, people are really stepping up. And it's wonderful to see. I hate to say post 9/11, but it's nice to see the country kind of come together to help each other. Even if everybody's not doing it right, at least they're trying, which is, you don't see that as much anymore.
And this is a bipartisan issue. And one of the things that Trump said that he was really impressed about is that it doesn't matter what political side that you're on. He's seeing people come together and cooperate because, again, this virus doesn't discriminate. It doesn't care if you are Republican, Democrat, Independent, worship the guy with the boot on his head. It doesn't care.
Oh, come on. Vermin Supreme is an awesome guy.
All hail Vermin Supreme.
Yes. Yes. Well, with that, they are, again, we talked earlier that they are marking certain supplies as scarce. So again, don't hoard them. The DOJ is aggressively pursuing people, or will be aggressively pursuing people that are hoarding, and they are actively prosecuting schemes and have even shut down a website that was selling a fake vaccine for Corona. Guys, if you aren't getting the source for a vaccine from a somewhat official website, don't. You have no idea what you're pumping into yourself.
And on top of that, if you are getting a vaccine, if it's being administered, guess what? You don't want it to be administered in some shady back alley. You want to be at a doctor's office, because honestly, if you don't adhere to the stringent, hygiene, you could be injecting a lot more than just whatever's in the vial.
And to make a note, they're not talking about people that are buying up all the toilet paper and holding it in case, somebody needs it. They're talking about medical supplies for now. I mean, at some point, if it got bad enough, they might move down the chain to that. But what we're talking about when they're saying that they're going after hoarders, it's not people who are buying, technically toilet paper is a luxury good, who are not holding on to those. They're holding on to the medically necessary stuff in order to prevent people from being sick. And honestly, I can understand why they're doing it, even if I don't totally agree with the methodology, because Europe is, even Europe now, we're getting mortality data from them. Right now, they've had no children under 15 that have died to the virus in Europe, but China had at least one child at age 14 that did. And right now, they're saying that we could be looking at upwards of 50,000 deaths just based on the rate of the disease progression in the United States. We're getting more tests. 250,000 tests have been run in the last 7 days. But it's still not at the level that we need it to be.
Yeah, they're prioritizing hospitalized patients. Again, though, there was the breakthrough for the self-swabbing, so we're going to see it's available sometime like this.
Yeah, and all labs, by the way, so the numbers that we're getting are because all labs in the United States are required by law to report to the CDC. So this is basically as accurate of information as we can get. I'm sure there are some that haven't, but for the most part, the numbers that we're getting are accurate because they have to be. This is the kind of thing where you can't just fudge numbers.
Yeah, and on that, New York metro area of New York, New Jersey, and Long Island, they're seeing 1 in 1,000 people have the virus, test positive for it. I mean, that's 5 times the other areas that, people are seeing it. 28% are actually positive in that area, where it's less than 8% through the rest of the country.
So right now, the total deaths have crossed 100 in the United States. Again, that's where they've calculated it could be over 50,000. Now, what are we thinking timeline-wise before this gets resolved?
Well, they're making projections on where things are going. But the thing is there's this thing, it's a curve. With the United States, outbreaks have started in different areas at different times. So until we see where that curve tops out, we're not going to know when we're on the decline. And if one state's on the decline, it doesn't mean all the states are on the decline. They have to take all of this data and basically crunch it together and say, okay,
here's our best guess.
Yes. And that's the thing, all that we've heard so far has just been data that they've received. And they're like, all right, so this is where we're at currently. But things could get a lot worse. I'm not trying to scare everybody, but if you don't adhere to the, 15-day plan and stay home, you're basically setting the country up for failure.
So I guess so are they thinking it's going to be months, weeks? I mean, what are we looking at here?
The president doesn't think it'll be months before this gets resolved, but he didn't give a definite time. They may quarantine many people in areas that are super effective. They may not. Or they may not be closing down 100% of the country. We don't know. But they are not considering a new round of travel bans. And say what you will about the president, but he did come out and say today that he's noticing there's a lot of nasty language to Asian Americans, and he's put his foot down. He's not allowing that to happen anymore. He's saying we all need to come together. He doesn't care. I mean, he cares where the virus originated from, but he's not looking at that anymore.
Well, at least not in the public eye. There will always be discussions behind closed doors of where the virus came from, what what reporting we got on it and what we could have done to prevent this. But hindsight's always 20/20. So just be kind to each other. There's no reason to be nasty to each person just because they may come from a certain nationality. That doesn't mean anything. They're people just like you. So let's cut it out on the racist stuff. Why not?
Yeah, I mean.
So now one of the things I see noted is that they're expecting this to happen again in like 2021 and 2022. I'm seeing where we might have vaccines and therapeutics by then, but is this something that's going to keep happening?
We're going to have 3 cycles. All right. So this is like the starting of it. In 2021, it's expected to hit again. And in 2022, it's expected to hit again. We don't know if it's going to mutate. We don't know if it's going to get worse. But they are going to have therapeutics out by 2021 and hopefully a vaccine by 2022.
Well, it looks like we've got a lot of stuff going on. It's still, again, a lot of information we don't know for sure. We are, again, just reporting from the official sites, and information isn't always concrete. One of the things going through the notes for the weekend and today is there's some stuff announced one day that immediately is retracted the next, or is corrected with amended numbers, or is completely overruled with new information. So that's one of the reasons why we're doing this. We want you guys to kind of get that brief summary of everything going on and know somewhat what they've been trying to talk about in these 4 or 5 hour long briefings. One of the reasons why this one is launching as late as it is because the presidential briefing today was not until 5 p.m.
5:30 actually. And actually
5:30?
It didn't start until 6.
Ah, okay. So you were working on that for over 2 hours.
Yeah.
Just listening to the briefing.
I was sitting there at 5:30 ready for it to start, going over the notes and trying to make kind of a comprehensive beginning for this podcast.
So again, what we're saying, kind of the reason I'm bringing this up, is while we're getting all of our information from official sources, the information is fluid, and you may be hearing us contradict ourselves the next night with new information or corrected information. So we just want to remind you, do your own research too. Don't take what we're saying 100% accurate. We're doing our best, and because of the information we're getting, the people giving it to us may not be 100% accurate.
We can only report on what they say. And you know what? If today they say the sky is blue and tomorrow it turns out it's purple, we're not going to know, before tomorrow that they're going to say the sky is purple.
Yeah.
So again, take what we're saying with a grain of salt. Do your own research, because everybody knows you can't follow any one news source blindly.
Right.
You can't, not even us.
Yeah, so take the briefings. We're going to do our best to give you guys the summaries of the briefings and get them out to you in a timely manner. And we hope that it helps somebody even just a little bit. I know it's nice seeing some of this information here, and hopefully it gives you guys a little bit more peace of mind too. So with that in mind, we'll have another one out, assuming there are briefings tomorrow. We'll have another one out tomorrow night or early Wednesday morning and go from there, guys. This has been LongwoodGeek.
And Puck.
This has been the COVID-Novid podcast, episode 2. Hopefully we don't have many more episodes to go, but we'll keep giving them to you until such time as we don't need to anymore.
And remember, united, we're a lot stronger than we are divided. And if you have the resources that you can put towards a donation to your local hospitals, please do. Please don't hold on to that. What good is thousands upon thousands of quarts worth of hand sanitizer if everybody you love and care about is dead?
Well, on the other hand, you can wash your hands cleanly of it.
That was terrible.
I know.
You should feel bad.
I don't.
I know you don't. All right. Good night, everybody.
Good night, everybody.
Be healthy, be safe, and we'll see you later.